That's really what I'm talking about today. Yeah, maybe you do want to do a certain thing with your podcast, with your brand, your social media, whatever, but maybe right now is not the time. I couldn't tell you how many things we're procrastinating. So at some point in 2025, we'll be doing multi-camera shoots. At some point in 2025, we'll have drastically different intros on video. There's going to be a lot of things. Maybe at some point for this show, we'll have B-roll and different stuff. It's just all being procrastinated because, yeah, it might be ideal, but just it's not realistic right now. Podcast Growth Nation, welcome back to another episode of Podcast Growth University, where we talk all things podcasting all the time. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. Spotify is changing. What does that mean for you? To my current awareness, I just want to piggyback on top of what I talked about last time. Audio and video will be measured separately within Spotify, but all of the video views are going to get measured as video views, and the audio views should get sent back to your RSS feed as normal. So essentially, it's very similar to YouTube. How if you have YouTube and you are putting up native video, you have to track separately. That's what it looks like Spotify is going to be doing. So I know there was a little bit of ambiguity. It's a really tough word to say when I left off the episode, so I wanted to jump on here and start this episode off with that. All right, cool. So today for episode number 130, if it's not sustainable, it doesn't really matter. You've heard me say this many times, and I think we did an episode on this where we talked about sustainability, consistency, and improvement. I had a podcast breakthrough session today with a wonderful human. Shout out to Todd. And Todd said, I feel like I'm struggling. I'm struggling to stay consistent. I'm overwhelmed. What do you think I should do? I'm looking for a workflow. And I said, honestly, I don't think a workflow is the problem. Because he said, well, I want to know kind of what your day looks like. And I said, my day is drastically different than your day because I do this full time and I'm 8 years in and I think he was 22 episodes in. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not comparing to be negative. I just don't think the way my day is set up is going to be optimal for you. I said, I think what we need to do is we need to go back to what was sustainable. Because I think you started from a place of unsustainable action, and now it's just catching up. And all I mean by unsustainable is, right now he is doing a lot of different stuff. He is in school, he has a full-time job, he has a family, he has children, he has a lot of other stuff going on, and he's trying to edit an hour and a half long episodes, and he's trying to get really good guests, and he's trying to post on social, and he doesn't feel like he's doing any of those things well. And I said, here's the thing. I think we have to lower our standard, and I think we have to be okay with it. And all I mean by that is right now, what you're doing is not sustainable. Here's the truth. It's not a workflow issue. It's not about workflow. It's about the fact that there's just too much going on. You're trying to do too much when you never did part one. So maybe part one would have been starting with audio. Cool. Learn audio editing. Awesome. Part two, add video. Cool. Learn video editing. Cool. And he's done that. He's done those. But the having very long guest interviews and then trying to figure out social media and then do YouTube and thumbnails and keywords and SEO, all of that stuff is where it really starts to compound. So I said, what I would do is I would start doing solo episodes. Because here's the thing. Right now for you, guest episodes are the primary. What if we made solo episodes the primary and then guest episodes are supplemental? That way you don't, I won't say you never miss an episode because life is still going to happen, but that way it's never up to somebody else whether or not you're able to do the episode on time. What if we do that? And I think what I really want this episode to be about is sometimes we back ourselves into corners with our own expectations and our own boundaries and our own roadblocks, and we're the ones holding ourselves back. And I'm dealing with this right now where we're testing out Spotify video. I want to get back to the place where we're doing a teaser clip from every episode, and it's going up on Spotify for creators. It's going out with a beta thing that we talked about last episode. But right now, it's not, I'm trying to do it, and it's not sustainable, and I haven't passed it on to the team yet because I don't really know how to pass it on to the team yet. So I'm getting in my own way. I'm getting in my own way where I could easily add that to my calendar. There's a lot of things I could do. But my expectations are it has to get done every day. I want it to get done at the same time. And these are my expectations for me, not anybody else. That's holding me back because it's stopping me from taking action on anything, really. I mean, I'm still occasionally putting ones up, but I don't have a really good workflow for that. Now, maybe this is a situation where workflow would be the thing that fixes the problem, for lack of better phrasing. But I just want to reiterate this because this is something I see so often. Ideal versus realistic. You've heard me talk about this a lot too. Ideally, yeah, maybe you would be doing a really good guest episode every week. Maybe you would be doing a guest and a solo episode every week. Maybe you would be posting on social media 7 times a week. Maybe you'd be going on 2 shows a week. That's all ideal. Realistically, what can you do today? And I think all it really is closing the gap between what is realistic and what is ideal. As you get better and better and better, you close the gap on what's realistic, and it gets closer to ideal. I said this on a podcast the other day, and I said, I feel very arrogant saying this, but please sit with me because I don't mean it that way. Me doing 7 episodes a week is not that hard anymore. But that's because we have an amazing team that takes care of all the post-production. That's because I have someone that does my social media. Shout out to Nicole on the team that does my social media. I don't have to do any of my social media. And that was something I was super afraid to let go of for a long time. And we're always focused on 1% improvements and, hey, can we try this and all that stuff. But that was something that I was super afraid to let go of. That allows me to do 7 episodes a week because eventually it became realistic for me to do that. That was the ideal thing. Ideally, we'll be able to do an episode every day, and we'll have a team that takes care of all the post-production work, so I can coach and I can record episodes, and the team can do what they're really good at and what they like doing, and I can do what I'm really good at and what I like doing. That eventually became realistic. The ideal eventually becomes realistic. But it's okay if you're not there yet. So essentially what I told this person is I said, I think we need to set smaller expectations. Not because I want you to do less, not because I want you to accomplish less, but realistically, you are going to burn out long before you get any level of result anyway. And if that's the case, this whole thing's going to die. So that's one thought. And again, you've heard me say this before, but I just want to reiterate this point. One of the reasons I like solo episodes so much is not necessarily because every time you're going to do them, but it's kind of a fail-safe. Imagine if, okay, let's do this. Imagine if this is the case. Imagine you're a baseball player, and in order to play catch with someone, in order to play catch, you have to have somebody on the other side that you can throw to, and they throw it back. And that's ideal. Ideally, you'd have someone that can throw to you because it'll make you move and you can test out different stuff. Awesome. When I was younger and I was playing baseball, I had one of those rebound nets where you throw the ball at the net and it bounces back. Is that ideal? No. But it was realistic for the times where I didn't have somebody to play catch with. And that's how I think of solo episodes. Now, there is a lot of conversation now around the power of solo episodes and building a personal brand and becoming a subject matter expert and all that stuff. And that's a deeper dive that we can do if you feel like it would be valuable. But I just want to reiterate that. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that maybe you should be doing, but you could say that about everything. Yeah, I should be doing 25 minutes of mobility instead of 20. I should be doing 25 minutes of learning instead of 20. I should be. Yeah, there's a lot of things that I should be doing more of. But are they sustainable right now? Is the reason I'm not doing them because I know it's not sustainable? That is a very big thing. Some things should be procrastinated. So there's automate, eliminate, delegate, and procrastinate. Automate means you have it do itself. So social media is a good example. If you use something, there's a whole bunch. Hootsuite, Metricool, there's a whole bunch. So let's say you create a month's worth of content on a Saturday, and then you can schedule that content to drop for the next 30 days. That's automation. That means you're doing something once, and then essentially something's taking care of it for you for however long. It just saves time. Might it take you 5 hours on a Saturday to do that? Yes. But in theory, it should save you more time because you're being more efficient, and then it'll automate. Eliminate. What are things that just don't matter right now? One of the things we recently did with our business is Alan and I sat down and we said, what are the departments that without them, this business will die? Because we had grown the business too much and we had too many departments, and our time and our energy and our focus was all over the place, and it was becoming very hard. And we were just focused on stuff that didn't matter. So we eliminated a lot of those things. We don't even talk about them anymore. When it's time, they'll come back. But for now, they don't exist because they don't need to. In an ideal world, they would. But realistically, they don't. So that's automate, eliminate. Delegate is find someone to help you. Again, now might be the easiest time ever. You can find someone on Fiverr. You can find someone on Upwork. There's people all over the place. You can reach out to me, whatever it is. Delegation is easier now than ever because the internet makes it super easy. And there's a lot of apps that are designed to help you with that. So that's delegation. And then procrastination. That's really what I'm talking about today. Yeah, maybe you do want to do a certain thing with your podcast, with your brand, your social media, whatever. But maybe right now is not the time. I couldn't tell you how many things we're procrastinating. So at some point in 2025, we'll be doing multi-camera shoots. At some point in 2025, we'll have drastically different intros on video. There's going to be a lot of things. Maybe at some point for this show, we'll have B-roll and different stuff. It's just all being procrastinated because, yeah, it might be ideal, but just it's not realistic right now. We're trying to finish the year strong, and then we'll reset some goals for 2025. So that's procrastination. But you can see really what's happening is you're trying to move the right chess piece at the right time, or maybe you're playing a completely different game. So I just don't want us to get stuck in the rut of this is what we do, and this is how we do it, and we always do it that way.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Hurwitz. So last year, I wanted to quit everything. I wanted to throw in the towel. I wanted to hang up my microphone. And Kevin said no. Kevin said, keep going, Jen. You've got this. And oh my God, I'm going to cry. And I did. Coaches need coaches, y'all. And working with Kevin has been one of the best experiences of my life. Oh my God, I'm crying. Kevin, you are the best. I could not do this without you. And thank you. Thank you for being you and the amazing human that you are.
That's really my goal in today's episode. I'm sure I'll find a way to get to 20 minutes on this. Just because I think that's one of the reasons so many podcasts fail. Because you think it has to be done a certain way. I would much rather somebody do solo episodes than no episodes. I think that's a great skill to practice. Even if you don't want to be a subject matter expert. Even if you don't want to go that route. I think it's a good skill to have. That way, it's great to have a personal trainer. It's great to have a personal trainer to walk you through the exercise. But you also have to know what you're doing. So if the personal trainer is sick, you can still go to the gym and get results. That's going to help you stay consistent. That's why I think solo episodes are so powerful. Is it what your audience wants? I don't know. I do think you'd be surprised because oftentimes when you look at the data, the episodes that the host does by themselves get more listens than the episodes with guests. Not always, but that happens often, and that is a suggestion to me that the audience wants more of you. So that's something. But again, that's not what this whole episode is about. I just don't want to see you call it quits because you think it has to be done in a certain specific way, when in reality it just doesn't. I just don't think that's constructive. I've fallen into this too. I mean, we did the guest thing for a long time, and it was we have to have a guest every week. And here's the thing. There were times where we had guests on that I regretted having. But that was our system. We do X amount of solos and X amount of guests. X amount of solos and X amount of guests. And do I regret it? I don't know if it's that serious. I don't necessarily regret it. But I probably would do it differently if I could go back. It's up to you. It's your show. You can do it however you want. And I think at this point, creativity matters way more than fitting in with what everybody else is doing. There's a lot of ways to win with a podcast or anything in general. There's a lot of ways to win. You just have to think outside the box. And maybe that's you doing solo episodes in a certain way or having guest episodes in a certain way, whatever. but just make sure it's coming from a place of sustainability, because if not, you're going to end up burning out. And that's what makes it really, really challenging. The other thing too, and I think the reason this happens so much now is because in a way, everything is a little bit easier than it used to be. So there are more video editors in terms of apps than there used to be. I still do use Adobe Premiere when I do any video editing, and that's a really hard app to learn. It's pretty extensive. But, there's Camtasia, and you can do some stuff in Canva, and there's a bunch of different ones that are browser-based, so there's a lot more opportunity out there. And now most people are saying, well, video is really important. So when you start, you want to start with audio, and you want to start with video, and YouTube, and teaser clips, and all that stuff. And again, I'm as guilty as anybody of giving that advice. But I always try to say that's ideal. People ask all the time, what does somebody really need to start a podcast? A cell phone. Or if you don't have a cell phone, you need a laptop that will allow you to record some level of audio. And you can literally record audio in your voice recorder on your laptop. That's it. That's all you need to start. In terms of technical stuff, you need to set up a podcast host and all that stuff. But you don't need video. You don't need teaser clips. You don't need social media. You don't need a website. You don't need a landing page. You don't need an email list. You don't need guests. You don't need any of that. Artwork. Obviously, you need artwork. You don't need an intro. You don't need an outro. You don't need music. You don't need a trailer episode. You don't need show notes. Are you going to win with none of that forever? Probably not. But what if that's enough to get started? What if that's enough to build momentum? What if that's enough to build belief? Whatever it may be. You can see how it gets wonky. Is there an optimal amount you'd start with? It would depend on a lot of factors. How much money do you have? How much time do you have? How competent are you? So, again, the goal of this episode is just to talk about sustainability. I didn't have a bullet point or a bullet point list for this episode. It was more, I did this podcast breakthrough session. I know a lot of people are probably dealing with the same thing. They're probably dealing with the same thing of I should be doing. And since I'm not doing all of it, I'm going to do none of it. I understand. Ice cream seems a lot better at night when you've already wrecked your diet for the day. It's just easy. Oh, I already messed up. Let me mess up worse. I think that happens, especially if you have an all or nothing mentality. I think that something is far better than nothing. And the reason is because something eventually becomes more and more and more and more and more. And eventually maybe you're doing everything that you thought you wanted to once do, and now you're ready to reset that. Because things are changing. When I was doing audio editing and video editing, and I was making the thumbnails, and I was doing all that, writing the descriptions, I thought that was the end. Like, okay, cool, now I've done everything. And then Instagram changed. And then TikTok came out. And then LinkedIn changed. And the world changed. Okay, cool, now what? Okay, let's do this. This is working. Okay, then it changed. Now Spotify's different. Now YouTube's different. There's YouTube Shorts. There's Spotify Shorts. Blah, blah, blah. So you never end up stopping. I think that is kind of my point in today's episode. Is there anything else I would add? I want this to be a gentle question, but why are you having guests in the first place? Would be a question that I would ask. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying don't do it. But what is the thought underneath? Do you enjoy interviewing guests? Awesome. Does it fill your cup? Awesome. Here's one that, again, gentle. Is it easier and you're scared of doing solo episodes? Okay, that's something to work through. Who am I to talk about something and get people to listen? Totally understand. I just want to know what the thought process is underneath it. Because when I first started this, I started with solo episodes. I think my first episode was a solo, then I did a guest episode, then I think I did a solo. I was kind of doing back and forth. Then when I left my job to do this full time, we started doing guest and solo episodes every week. And that became the run rate for us. And now it's only solo. And same here. I'll have guests occasionally. I just don't want to force myself to have a guest that isn't aligned, that I don't think will add the most value for you guys. That's the piece of it. Because when I'm constricted and it's I must have a guest by Thursday or I suck, what are the odds I have a really good aligned guest? The reason I did the episodes with Evan were because he invited me up to interview him, and I was like, all right, yeah, that sounds fun. I'll go up and interview him, and if we're going to talk about YouTube, I might as well use it. But that was just a kind of a coincidence, and it worked out really, really nicely. I'm not against guests. I just know that I think for a lot of people, they assume that's the only way to win. And I just don't think that's true anymore, especially now. It's easier to get guests for sure, but now so many people have been on podcasts that even when they share your content, it doesn't do what it used to do. So again, maybe that's a conversation for a deeper dive in a different episode, but I just wanted to throw that in there. Just want to touch on this too real quick, because this was something that came up from this podcast breakthrough session. Don't fall victim. And again, blanket statement, but don't fall victim into the mindset of once you start a podcast, your entire social media page and all of your pages should be about the podcast. You are far more than a podcast. You do other stuff. You have other hobbies. You are good at other things. You put your time into other stuff. There are other interesting things about you. That's another common thing that I see is, well, I want to promote the podcast. That's all that I'm going to promote. That might increase the likelihood of somebody who follows you to go watch the podcast, but it's probably not going to increase the likelihood of getting followers necessarily. I'm not saying it can't, but that's something I'm really leaning into now, is treating every layer of the 5-layer business model like it's its own layer. Social media, podcast, group, freebie, paid. Everything is the same, but everything is disconnected, but it connects in a way. I just want to throw that out there too, because that was something I talked about on the podcast breakthrough session today as well. And I feel like it's applicable to anybody watching this. All right, cool. If anything didn't get answered that you want answered, feel free to shoot me a DM at NeverQuitKid on Instagram. My email is kevin@nextleveluniverse.com. You can email me there. I think I have another one, Podcast Growth U, the letter U, @gmail.com. But I don't really talk about that one much because they all get sent to the same one. But you can find me. I'll have my link in the show notes for a free 30-minute podcast breakthrough session as always. And Podcast Growth Nation, I'm trying to post in there every day now. And that's something I'm working on scheduling, talking about automation today. So if you're looking for a group of podcasters who are also focused on growing, scaling, monetizing, improving, getting better at the craft, all that will be there for you. I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday if you're celebrating whatever holiday season it is for you, wherever you are in the world. And what else do I hope for you? I hope you're not backing yourself into a corner that's unsustainable and creating an unwinnable game for yourself. Because if that's the case, you're going to get burnt out, and maybe you're going to end up being that person who says, yeah, I had a podcast once, and I don't want that for you. I want you to do this for a long time, and I want you to get fulfillment, and I want you to get success, and I want you to get confidence and improvement and all that stuff. So that is what I hope for you all. As always, keep on podcasting, keep on crushing it, and I will talk to you all next week.